Today, we talk about cursed rituals. Some are forbidden, others forgotten. But be careful, some rituals don't need to be performed. Sometimes, just knowing about them is enough. Lucas was browsing the internet late one night when he stumbled into the shadowy corners of the deep web. In a dusty old forum, he found a blog post about an ancient ritual called the Black Mirror Ritual. According to the post, this ceremony promised to show a person their future. But there was a catch. If the rules weren't followed exactly, the person could end up trapped inside the mirror forever. The blog claimed the ritual dated back centuries, tied to a cursed sorcerer. Lucas didn't really believe in that kind of stuff, but his curiosity got the better of him. The next day, he went down to his family's basement. There he found an old mirror that once belonged to his grandmother. Its frame was rotting, and the glass was scratched and cloudy. When he looked into it, his reflection seemed slightly off, almost hazy. He waited until the early hours of the morning, and when the clock struck 3 a.m., he retreated to his room to begin the ritual. The instructions from the blog were clear. Stand in front of the mirror and remain completely still for 3 minutes. If a shadow or movement caught his eye, he must never turn to look. Finally, whisper his name into the mirror 3 times. Lucas lit some candles, turned off the lights, and sat before the mirror. The air in the room grew heavy, as if an unseen force was pressing down on it. As the minutes ticked by, his heart started pounding. Just as the 3 minutes were nearly up, he caught something in the corner of his eye. In the mirror, a tall, thin silhouette appeared behind him. It moved slowly, but Lucas remembered the rules and didn't turn around. He took a deep breath and whispered, "Lucas, Lucas, Lucas." In that instant, the mirror went black. It was as if the glass had been coated in ink. Lucas's reflection vanished completely. But he was still there, wasn't he? He touched his face. His hands felt his skin, but the mirror showed nothing. Panic surged through him, and he tried to step back, but his feet wouldn't move. They felt glued to the floor. Then it hit him. He was inside the mirror. From the outside, Lucas's room looked empty. His bed was made, the candles had gone out. Everything was in place, except Lucas was gone. But if someone looked closely at the mirror, they might see him trapped inside, silently screaming. His face was a blurred smudge behind the glass, his hands pounding against the inner surface, though no sound escaped. That night, Lucas's mother woke up to a strange noise, like a faint whisper. She got out of bed and went to her son's room. When she opened the door, the silence chilled her. Lucas's bed was empty. Her eyes scanned the room and landed on the mirror. For a split second, she thought she saw something. Her son's face? She reached out, her fingers brushing the cold glass, and instantly felt a pull. Within seconds, she was gone too. The room was left with nothing but the mirror, silent and menacing. Days passed. Lucas's father reported his wife and son missing to the police. The house was searched, but no clues turned up. One officer reached for the mirror to move it, but another stopped him. "Don't touch that," he said. "There's something off about it." The mirror was taken as evidence and locked away in a storage facility. But a few days later, the worker assigned to the storage unit disappeared. He was the last person seen near the mirror. The story doesn't end there. Somehow, the mirror found its way out into the world again. It started popping up in antique shops and flea markets. Some people bought it, some touched it, some just stared too long, but they all met the same fate, pulled into the endless darkness within. It became a local legend known as the Black Mirror. To the police, it remained a series of unsolved missing persons cases. And here's the worst part. If you ever look into an old mirror and notice your reflection looks a little off, like your eyes don't quite belong to you, know that Lucas is still in there. And maybe his mother is with him, both waiting for a way out. Don't stare too long, because they might be watching you. So what do you think? Is this just an old legend, or is there truth hiding behind the glass? Have you ever looked into a mirror and felt like something was off? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But be careful. Some reflections are better left unseen. 3 college students, Lila, Ethan, and Noah, were hanging out in their dorm late one night, trading stories about ancient legends. The talk eventually drifted to a creepy tale that had been whispered around campus for years: the soul reflection ritual. This ceremony was said to project a person's soul into another dimension, unveiling hidden truths about their existence. But there was a chilling catch. If you messed it up, the reflection could come back and take your place. At first, they brushed it off with nervous laughs, but Ethan's mischievous smirk dared them to try the forbidden ritual for themselves. The ritual called for 3 things: an old handheld mirror, a drop of blood, 3 people gazing into the mirror at the same time. Lila dug through her bag and pulled out a small, silver-frame mirror that had belonged to her grandmother. Its edges were worn and blackened with age, and the glass had a strange, misty quality. Ethan flicked open his pocket knife, pricked his finger, and let a single drop of blood splash onto the mirror's surface. Noah and Lila did the same. Their blood mixed together, pooling into a dark crimson blotch. They set the mirror down in the middle of their circle, sat around it, and shut their eyes. In unison, they whispered the words 5 times: "Reflect me, reveal me, take me." As the words echoed through the room, the air turned ice cold. The flickering candles on the desk trembled, but none of them dared peek. After the 5th repetition, an eerie silence settled in. Slowly, they opened their eyes and peered into the mirror. What they saw made their hearts skip a beat. Their reflections stared back, but something was horribly wrong. Lila's reflection looked younger, like a version of her from 10 years ago. Ethan's was older, his face etched with wrinkles and a tired scowl. Noah's was a total stranger, a cold, unfamiliar pair of eyes glaring back at him. Then a low, guttural laugh rumbled through the room. It sounded like it was coming from inside the mirror itself. The 3 froze as their reflections began to move on their own. Lila's younger self tilted her head and smirked. Ethan's aged reflection furrowed its brow. Noah stretched a hand toward the glass. But in reality, none of them had budged. Panic surged through them, and they scrambled back, shouting, but it was too late. The reflections blurred and vanished from the mirror. For a split second, everything went dizzy. When they looked at each other, the nightmare sank in. Lila was staring out of Ethan's eyes. Ethan woke up in Noah's body. Noah screamed with Lila's voice. Their souls had swapped. The things from the mirror were inside them now. Ethan, frantic, lunged for the mirror and touched it again. His fingers sank into the glass, and with a piercing yell, he disappeared completely. Only Lila and Noah remained, trapped in each other's bodies. When the police investigated Ethan's disappearance, all they found in the dorm was the old handheld mirror. One officer inspecting it swore he saw his own face shift for a moment in the glass and jerked back in terror. The mirror was bagged as evidence, but somehow it went missing from the station. Word later spread that it had turned up in a second-hand shop downtown. Those who bought it, touched it, or even stared too long started avoiding mirrors altogether. And here's the scariest part. Lila and Noah are still out there, but they can't look into mirrors anymore. The faces looking back aren't theirs. As for Ethan, some say the faint whispers you hear from mirrors late at night are his voice, calling out from wherever he vanished to. So if you ever catch your reflection looking a little off, like the eyes aren't quite yours, don't reach out, because that reflection might just take you too. But what if one day you look into a mirror and realize the eyes staring back aren't yours? Or worse, what if something is standing right behind you, just out of sight? Is your soul really still your own? The paranormal never ends, because the darkness never fades. Subscribe to Joseph City and keep unlocking the unknown.